Hey guys, my name is SHANANN. I just want you to know a little bit of my story. I went through one of the darkest times of my life, and then I met Chris. And he's the best thing that has ever happened to me.
So how you doing? How's it going? There was no note or anything?
I don't know what to do right now.
The family of SHANANN Watts and her daughters Celeste and Bella have been through so much since they were all killed by Chris. First, they were victimized by the crime itself, losing their loved ones. Then came the trauma of finding out SHANANN's husband did it. And through all of that, even up to today, members of SHANANN's family say they are receiving death threats. They are being bullied and tormented by online trolls, people hurling insults and making hurtful accusations against them. It got so bad that SHANANN Watts' father, Frank Rushek, flew to Colorado last year and held a news conference in front of the home where his daughter was killed to plead for all of the bullying of his family to just stop.
Last summer, on August 13, 2018, my daughter SHANANN Watts and her children were murdered. They were killed by SHANANN's husband and the children's father, Chris Watts. But I will say that our family, including SHANANN and her children and our grandchildren, have been ridiculed, demeaned, slandered, mocked in the most vicious ways you can imagine. We have been subject to false accusations, fake Facebook accounts, hate speeches, and constant stream of ugly, evil insults and attacks. Every time we turn around, there is someone trying to capitalize on our tragedy. To the people who feel they are entitled to profit off our loss, we urge you, please stop.
And I'm joined now by Court TV special correspondent Ashley Banfield, who's been looking into this. This is unbelievable. Ashley, what have you found out?
Yeah, I think that's the word, Vinny. Unbelievable. How does this happen? I mean, pre-social media, these people must have all been out there, just no outlet to do what they do so well. In the wake of the Sandy Hook killings of those children, this has been the lives of the families those children left behind. They are ruthlessly and mercilessly trolled, mocked, harassed, harangued. There are death threats against them, and that's what SHANANN Watts' family is now discovering too, 2 years out from these murders. I think, Frank Rushek Sr. puts it probably the best. He says there's a lot of ugly out there, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or YouTube. It's just filled with these conspiracy theorists and all the false rumors and actual just flat out lies that people continue to propagate, insults, attacks, and like I said before, even death threats, they say. This has been sort of a daily occurrence for them in the past. They have reached out to the various different social media platforms to ask for help in taking these posts down, or at least trying to cull the herd of trolls out there. It's been really odd. They said they haven't had that help. And even tonight, just before I came on with you, I've just started looking to find, sure enough, there are Facebook groups out there in support of Chris Watts who think that somehow SHANANN was somehow, I don't know, I can't even say it out loud, it's worthy of this crime. I'm really not sure where their logic is, given the fact that we've, heard so much. We've heard him. We've seen him. It's not a mystery, people, what this guy was capable of. But in case, anybody needs a reminder, here is the lying, cheating horror show that is Chris Watts, right on camera, telling police all sorts of dirty lies. Here you look.
Does she have any friends around here?
Just for friends?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's got friends in Frederick, Erie, Aurora, that part of Erie, Broomfield, Parker.
Have you tried to contact any of them?
Oh yeah, we've exhausted every option. The last thing I'm going to do is hospitals. Hotels. There's so many, but...
And no one's heard from her today? And what was the conversation this morning you guys had?
It was about selling the house and separation.
And how'd she take that?
We were both pretty emotional. We was both crying.
And then did you see her before you went to work? Did you say anything to her?
Well, she went back, when she told me she was going to go to her friend's house and kids, take the kids with her.
Did you physically cause Shanann's disappearance?
No.
Do you know where Shanann is now?
No.
Did you guys get into an argument before she left?
It wasn't like an argument. We had an emotional conversation, but I'll leave it at that. But I just want them back. I just want them to come back. And if they're not safe right now, that's what's tearing me apart.
Yeah, real tearing you apart, huh? Just tearing you apart. Actually, what was torn apart was the skin of your baby girls that you stuffed into that oil tank because the opening was too small for the bodies of those girls. But you didn't care. You just jammed them through. And then you said all those things, lied to everybody. And then you actually blamed it on Shanann. Your handiwork in murdering those little girls, you said she did it. You propagated that lie, Chris Watts, for days and days and days until eventually, and I really hope the trolls are going to hear this and maybe it will seep in until you finally actually confessed all the stuff that you did. This was well after you pled guilty to it all because you were afraid of the death penalty. So you took the plea, admitted to killing them, and then in an interview with the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, you finally explained what you did to these little kids and to your wife. And then again, if the trolls need the evidence because they just haven't got it together yet, here's the evidence of the monster you seem to love. Take a look.
Cece was first. She did have a blanket. She had a blue blanket. A Yankee blanket.
So was she alive when she went into the oil tank? No.
I put the blanket over her head.
And that's how she passed. Couldn't breathe.
I put the blanket over her head. I didn't want to. No. I strangled her right there in the back seat.
Okay.
What was Bella do?
She's sitting beside her.
Did she understand? Did she know what was going on?
She didn't say anything.
And then the same for Bella. Just without a blanket.
With the blanket.
Oh, okay.
I didn't look. I think every time I closed my eyes, I just hear her say, "Daddy, no," and that was it.
Yeah, I kind of hope he hears that for the rest of his life, echoing against the walls of his solitary confinement in Wisconsin. Yet, again, the trolls still seem to love him and for some reason want to take it out on the family Shanann left behind and somehow want to enjoy themselves in these chat rooms and Facebook groups and online by somehow suggesting all of this was her fault. Again, I'm having a tough time getting my head around it, and I've never gotten my head around Sandy Hook and why people seem to blame the families of the Sandy Hook victims. I was there, just FYI, saw it with my own eyes, saw the trail of hearses go by and all the vehicles. It was the most grim moment of my career, watching all of those hearses going by with little tiny white coffins in the back because the kids were so little that died at Sandy Hook, that really died, did die, really truly died. So what recourse? Here we are all angry. I'm sure you're all watching. You're just as angry as I am. But what recourse do the Rushiks have against these filthy trolls that are ruining their lives? Because we do have that thing called the First Amendment, and it protects the ugliest speech out there. And this is ranking right up there. I asked Christina Ramey, who specializes in online bullying and harassment, about the legal recourses versus the First Amendment. And you'll be buoyed to hear that, yeah, there is recourse. Have a listen.
So, Kristen, tell me, where does the line get drawn between free speech and really hurting people with that speech?
The problem when we use the term free speech, we're talking about the government being able to protect someone's right to free speech, right? And so a government is the only one that can be the entity that violates that right. So here, when you're talking about private people, you have a right to say things. Who has the right to stop you? And if you have threats of physical violence, there are times when, of course, the police can become involved.
And then I think about the government getting involved in your free speech when you begin to harass someone as well. But internet harassment is kind of a new frontier. So where do we stand?
I represent a lot of people who've been the victims of bullying and harassment online. And Facebook and YouTube and the other platforms have become better at monitoring what's happening. Their algorithms are better now at detecting things where the victims of bullying and harassment don't have to be the folks that report it necessarily. So things are getting better. I think that there was a period of time where it was the wild, wild west. We're still not in a place where Facebook and Twitter are controlling and monitoring what's happening on their websites. Holding them accountable is a totally different story and a little bit more complicated.
So let's take Facebook and the platforms out of it for a moment. And, let's talk about the typists. If you look at a family like SHANANN Watts' family, they have been ruthlessly assailed by the power of the pen by so many people. And I wonder if that's just allowed, as awful as it is and as immoral as it is it just allowed for people to be so shamelessly evil online?
It's hard to regulate it is the issue. And can the government regulate it is the bigger issue. We try to regulate hate crimes, and oftentimes those are struck down on constitutional grounds because they violate First Amendment rights.
When SHANANN's family says they're working on something called SHANANN's Law, how far can a law go before it starts to impede, your right to be terrible?
We all have the right to say what we need to say, and you're right on that. And I think the problem with regulating speech is that until it crosses a line to a threat, then it really can't be regulated by the federal government. That's when you're interfering with someone's First Amendment right. And as terrible as those rights are, there's not much you can do about it. It's about protecting my rights as well. So you protect the rights of the most vile in order to protect all of our rights to do what we want to do in terms of saying our piece.
And then I also wonder how close to the line you can come with regard to defaming someone. So for instance, the Ruszczyk family, the family of SHANANN Watts, if someone repeatedly says something about them that's not true, can they somehow prove that they've been defamed by it? And if someone claims that perhaps they're not the victims they say they are, or that Chris is not guilty, that then brings into question the title of victim and victim's family. And could that be considered defaming someone? It's a little complicated, and I don't know if they'd lose money, so to speak, which is really big in the definition of libeling someone, but can they be held accountable for doing something like that, claiming they're not victims?
Well, then it's, it's your reputation or your family's reputation is what they're attacking in the scenario you're giving. And there is a question of whether or not they're considered a private person or a public figure. And that makes a big difference when you are examining whether or not there's liability in these kinds of cases. You might remember the Richard Jewell case from many moons ago, the alleged Atlanta bomber. A lot of case law flowed from that dealt with when you can defame a public or private person. Richard Jewell was made a public person.
Not by his own choice.
Right, not at all. And, others, like yourself, choose to be in a public light, right? So there's a difference in what you're doing. And so was Frank Ruszczyk choosing to be public? There could be arguments that could be made because he has been so outspoken about what his family is going through, that he has decided to become a public figure or make himself more public. And then a defamation lawsuit becomes much more difficult.
Wow. So the fact that he has been victimized once and wants to defend his dead sister and dead nieces might elevate him to a public figure where he can no longer defend himself using libel laws.
That's correct.
It seems like just a double tragedy.
It is. I don't necessarily agree with this public versus private figure. I think that we all have the right to protect our reputation and should have the same recourse regardless of what we do for a living or what kind of activists we choose to become, to defend ourselves that way or to protect ourselves rather that way. So it is very unfortunate but true.
What do you think the odds are that the Ruszczyk family prevails in trying to get something like Shanann's law enacted?
In Colorado, I think that they have probably a very friendly legislature that has embraced this family. So I think that they have that going for them. I think that because they're victims of crimes and now have been brutalized on top of that, that their chances become even better. When we are trying to get laws passed in Sacramento here in California, for instance, we're bringing victims to come and talk to legislators. And because they're the ones that are pushing this, not attorneys or lobbyists, I think that their chances become a little bit better. I think that they have to be really careful because of the First Amendment rights we were talking about.
Well, I wish the best for them. I just, you know, to the trolls out there, be careful because you may end up the next online victim of bullying because of your behavior too. And God forbid you go through what you're putting these people through. Krista, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ashley.
And Vinny, I should also mention that, you know, Krista was very clear in saying there's the difference between criminal prosecution of what you say with your free speech protections and civil prosecution, because you may have the right to say something, but you also have to deal with the consequences of it. And while the government may not be able to lock you up for being a horrible person verbally, there are civil actions that can be taken against you. Here's the rub. What Krista says is it gets really difficult to deal with the anonymity issues, finding these trolls. They're just leeches into the, you know, ether of society. And so they're hard to actually find. And then there's the jurisdictional problems, right? Where are they? Are they in UK? Well, good luck going after someone in Saudi Arabia or UK, or maybe we just don't even know what state they're in. So there are hurdles without question, but we're still a little in the wild, wild west in terms of really getting a handle on the damage that these people do. And P.S., who are they?
Yeah.
I mean, really, who are they?
Yeah. The bottom line, from my perspective, the only way you're going to stop this stuff from happening on Twitter, on Facebook, on Google, on YouTube, is to get rid of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. It's another whole conversation.
What are you
but
doing
the
tomorrow?
immunity, the immunity that they have, the immunity that they have makes them not care because they can't be sued.
The current president has talked a lot about that, has threatened that as well. That's a big road to hoe, as you and I know. But for the viewers out there who may not know what that section is, basically all these platforms, they're just the town square. That's kind of how the law treats them. And they have been operating that way since their inception. And more critics are saying, well, maybe they should be taking the hit on some of this. Like, you know, for instance, Court TV, if I said something defamatory and I libeled somebody through Court TV, well, Court TV is also the publisher, right? So Court TV could be part of that. Well, these platforms, they don't suffer that same exposure.
So they don't care. They don't care.
So
they honestly don't care. They're too busy counting all their money. That's how the companies got so big and so wealthy, because they can't be sued by lawyers like me. That's why. All right.
You're too busy to sue. You got a show to do.
Exactly. Ashley, thank you so much.
Okay.